Good evening, PGA DFS fans and golf betting fans. Ben, we're going to bring them both in with us tonight here as we get to talk about the Scottish Open. And for all of you joining in chat, first off, thank you very much for joining us. Make sure you're liking and subscribing to our channel. But I've got a fun little story to tell about the Scottish Open and Stokastic.com. That is right. Believe it or not, without the Scottish Open, you and I may not be sitting here today, Ben. So as we march on, I'm going to tell that story. And I'm wearing the same shirt that I got 4 years ago on that infamous trip that we'll talk about. But first, we have so much going on in the world of golf. There's not just withdrawals. There's additions to the event. That's right. Golfers that were not supposed to be in the tournament are playing. There's more than 156 golfers. It's the biggest field I think you and I have ever covered in a regular tournament, not those, silly 3-day things. That doesn't count. It's crazy, but I love it, and it certainly brings some intrigue. So, Ben, how are you navigating all of the changes this week?
Yeah, I mean, I'm rolling with the punches. It's going to be difficult. We have a lot of variables thrown at us, I think, at the same time. We're in Europe. We've got a 2 a.m. lock. We've got a lot of golfers that if you don't play Euro golf, you're probably wondering, who exactly is this new, course we don't see. So I like it. It's intriguing. It's a big field. 6 of 6 could be very low. And that is going to present a great appetizer for what's going to be a great Open Championship in just a week's time.
It sure is. And we're going to get it all here this week. Let's first start off with the weather. The best weather of the first 36 holes is Thursday morning, and the worst is Thursday afternoon. So what do you do with that right away?
So certainly for showdown and things of that nature, you definitely want to lean into the AM golfers. But the interesting situation from what I'm seeing is that it looks like Friday, the guys that go out Thursday AM might be in the worst of it all. Friday PM could get nasty. So it's such a fluid situation. I think that at some point you're going to have to deal with the elements, and there are going to be some people who benefit. I'm not doing anything crazy. I think it's going to be moderately windy at times. It could be a little nasty in the PM both days. So I'm playing it straight. This is what you get when you go to Scotland. You get some crazy conditions. You would know better than me. You've been there. I certainly have not.
Yeah, here's the thing. It can be predicted that it's going to rain and wind all day and then nothing happen. And it can be predicted that it's going to be sunny and literally 5 minutes later, you're looking on the horizon and you're like, that doesn't look like sun to me. So the most unpredictable weather patterns that we see all year are here in the couple of weeks that we're over here. We've been lucky though. Not just the Scottish Open the last couple of years, but the Open Championship as well. They really haven't faced many elements. Will Zalatoris is back in the fescue. Maybe that's an element that's outside of weather that people will have to get accustomed to over the next couple of weeks. And hopefully he's strengthened his back where he's not going to have to withdraw after being in the top 15 of the event. But nonetheless, he is here to play this week, and we will talk about him. A couple of other housekeeping things up at the top. Withdraws, Harry Higgs and Justin Lauer have decided to not go overseas and are both teeing it up at the Barbasol. That's this Great Barracudas next week, if I'm not mistaken. So they're not in the field, even though they're printed in the DraftKings. The additions are Justin Harding and Adrian Otegi. They're going off in the morning with Brandon Grayson, Ian Poulter going off in the afternoon in that twosome. So now let's get into waves. If you do want to play it, here's the golfers going out in the morning that I've got my eye on. Christian Bezuidenhout, Johnny Vegas in the chat. We didn't even get 2 minutes in. And we've got a Tom Kim call, which we'll certainly talk about. We've got Haotong Lee and Joaquin Niemann. Let me ask you about Haotong Lee, Ben, really quickly. This guy has come back from the depths of the ocean in terms of where he was in the professional game. What do you make of this turnaround? Because we always knew he had the talent, all the talent in the world, I should say.
Yeah, I mean, it's what I make of it. Obviously, when you lose your game to that extent, it reminds me of Brendan Todd a little bit. A lot of people maybe who are new don't remember. Brendan Todd lost it completely, and Haotong Lee was on that level.
I mean, shanking it in PGA Tour events.
Yeah, like not playable. Not that he was playing bad. He was not a professional. It's tricky, though, because when you look at, particularly if you're looking at long-term data sets, you get bad data with a guy like this because some of those numbers are not there. Now, when you look at recent form, Haotong Lee, obviously playing great golf. And I think a lot of people remember his blitz at the Open several years ago. So he's going to be a popular name this week. I totally get it.
Yeah, one that a buddy of both of ours from the Twitter world, Matthew Smith, Sammy knows very well the Hao Tong Lee scenario.
Certainly does.
Back at the Open Championship a couple of years ago. A couple of other names from the morning wave, Rahm and Scheffler, 1 and 2 in the world, are going out with Viktor Hovland, who we'll save our chatter about until a little bit. A little concerned I am about his game right now. Then we got Spieth, Smith, and Hatton. What a grouping that is. Cameron Smith is obviously electric when he's on. Jordan Spieth is always pretty animated, and Tyrell Hatton is the most animated golfer right now out there. So that's a fun threesome going out tomorrow morning. And then to clear it up, Sam Burns, Justin Rose, and Nikolai Hogard going off in the morning. Rasmus is also going off in the morning. Funny enough, though, I think Nikolai's had a much better year, but he's cheaper than him this week, Ben. Is there anything to make of that? I feel like they're both in play here.
Yeah, I mean, I think both of them are names. It seems from what I know about them that Rasmus generally is regarded as the better kind of prospect, and we've seen him a little more. But both of those guys, and we're going to see a lot of names. I can't stress this enough. I know Ryan Fox is going to be a very popular name, but there's going to be a lot of guys that we don't see on the PGA Tour over the next 2 weeks that get in the mix, that can play in links conditions with funky weather. It's just a different style of golf, and that's going to be reflected in these leaderboards.
Sure is. In the afternoon, Matthew Fitzpatrick, Colin Morikawa, and Will Zalatoris, Justin Thomas, Matsuyama, Fleetwood, Homa Cantlay, Molinari, Xander Minwoo Lee, and Robert McIntyre, with Billy Horschel, Sung Jae Im, and Ryan Fox. All those guys are going PM, AM. So just some interesting notes there. Again, if you are stacking, the way I'm doing it this week is I went between Rahm and Thomas up top. I ended up going with Rahm a little bit more because I think, again, there's so many different sources you can use. I use Windfinder. I've always used it. It does look like tomorrow morning is going to be pretty docile. Not much going on. Wind picking up. So I want golfers that are going out tomorrow morning that can get out to a really fast start and then hopefully weather the conditions on Friday. That's what I'm playing for. So let's do the pick your favorite. And I'm going to pick 3 guys from that AM PM wave, Ben, and then I'll do the opposite. So we've got Scotty Scheffler, Jon Rahm, and Sam Burns in our first rank 'em here this week. Sam Burns maybe not playing as good as he has this year, but certainly he looked okay at the little pro-am that they had the last couple of days, while Jon Rahm is certainly playing well. Scotty Scheffler maybe regressing just a little bit. So where are you heading this week?
Yeah, I mean, it's going to be part of it is going to be trying to anticipate how hard this plays, because I'm still pretty adamant that a guy like Sam Burns would be better suited if there's no defense and he can just go after these holes. I worry a little about him in links golf, not as much experience. He does a lot of damage with the greens, and the greens in Europe are just different. They're traditionally much slower. So I'm interested to see how that affects. Rahm is my number 1 play. I like him a lot. It's no disrespect to Scheffler. I would just prefer Rahm. Sam Burns, I think, is going to be last, more so because I like Cam Smith and I like Spieth quite a bit, and they're in that same neighborhood.
Yeah, they absolutely are. Jon Rahm for me, and I'd say Scotty Scheffler and Sam Burns are just about even. Both overweight for me, the projection, though, this week. I like all 3 quite a bit, and I like Spieth Smith, the guys you just mentioned as well. Now let's talk about what I perceive to be the bad wave, but in good form. Justin Thomas, Matthew Fitzpatrick, and Xander Schauffele. Nobody hotter than Xander Schauffele. He continued the Travelers Championship win in the 2 rounds there in Ireland at the something Manor. I don't know the first word. Adore Manor. Anyways.
Sounds right.
He was 10 under in 2 days and took down the victory. I really feel like he could. This is part of my hot take. I know it's so early on, Ben, but what I'm going for here is Xander's been in such top form that I feel like maybe the win tomorrow afternoon could throw him off, ends up shooting a terrible round, bounces back Friday, ends up missing the cut, but ends up winning next week because he's got a couple extra days to prepare. That's my hot take on Xander. I've got a couple more, so I'll repeat it just in case some people come in at later in the show. But that's my take on Xander. I'm fine with Thomas, and I'm fine with Fitzpatrick this week. I like both.
That would be great. If Xander misses the cut, I will be betting him at the Open. I can guarantee you that, because that will depress his odds. He's going to be the most popular player on the slate here. I get it. I think he makes for a very solid play, but if I can, I'd get the $700 and go get JT. He can just destroy courses with his wedges. He can work in and out of trouble. Fitzy to me is the toughest of the three in a lot of ways because I don't think there's going to be a big drop off, even though he broke through with a major. He grinds hard. He's motivated and he's a real top end player. And his tee to green game, I mean, everyone was worried about him breaking through in America. He was a prolific winner over here already. So I think he's completely fine. I would just order him like that though. JT over Fitzy over Xander, but part of that is just because Xander is going to be extremely popular. I still would like to get to some to cover my bases.
Yeah, again, he's I think the hottest player in the world right now. Everything looks good. So honestly, what I'm hoping for is that we get the one bad round, and that causes a miscut. And like you said, it's going to depress odds, depress ownership, everything for signs going into next week that I like. So, all right, let's stick with this bad wave, good form. We're going to add in Ryan Fox, who chat has already brought up. Max Homa has been so consistent this year. Billy Horschel obviously won at the Memorial 2 starts ago. And Sungjae Im, outside of his miscut, was playing very well after his COVID. So how about these four?
Yeah, you got some good, upper mid-range plays here. Sungjae Im, the thing about him that I always like, he can do it in any conditions because he gains strokes in all four categories. So if it plays really easy, he can go low. If it plays really difficult, he can grind out. And I like that. I think Max Homa is probably the most intriguing name. I expect him to take steps in all facets of his game, including links golf. He hasn't really done it over here, but he's been showing time and time again. This is just a good player. Ryan Fox, he's really popular. And I know he's playing out of his mind. He's got a bunch of runner-up finishes. I don't believe that in the mid-8s, he belongs near 20%. So give me guys like Sungjae and give me guys like Homa over Ryan Fox and Billy Ho.
Ryan Fox, man, I can't take away the form that we're seeing on paper. I mean, it's fantastic. It's 4 top 5s in the last, 6 starts, something crazy like that. But, I hate to compare these weeks, this week and next week, but why is he $1,400 less next week and Spieth is $1,200 more? That to me, something doesn't seem right there. So I would rather just play Spieth this week and play Fox next week. If that's really, if we're going to look at it that way, I just, I'm not sure I quite understand. It's not like the field next week. Are those 16 live guys really going to push Ryan Fox down for $1,400? No. So a little confused at the pricing here. I'm okay fading the ownership and I'm okay taking my chances and saying Fox won't beat these PGA Tour guys here this week. Could be wrong, but Justin in the chat wants to know if I stole one of Ben's shirts to add to my cup there. No, this shirt, now that it's been brought up, I will tell the story. 4 years ago, 5 years ago, one of those two. FanDuel put on the live final for golf in Scotland. It was the coolest live final I think anyone's ever put together. FanDuel at the time had some headquarters in Edinburgh. I mean, I'll get in trouble for saying that. But nonetheless, our buddy Alex Baker and Tom Kennedy both won that trip with me. And believe it or not, that's where they met and this company's idea was birthed. So Scottish Open, very near and dear to all of our hearts here this week. Now, of course, I'm super excited that it's a PGA Tour event. I get to cover, but yes, that's where the shirt comes from. It's a FanDuel logo. I don't know, it might be just cut off there on the camera, but that's where it comes from. Now, back to the golfers. That I got that out, Ben. Let's go switch courses now to good wave, but bad form. We've got Cameron Smith and Jordan Spieth, both coming off of miscuts in their last start. They're the top two. And then Victor Hovland doesn't have a top 10 since the Players. And Joaquin Niemann also coming off a miscut, his first in quite some time. So of these four, you already mentioned Smith and Spieth. I'm going to guess that's your 1-2. How are you playing Niemann and Hovland here this week?
Good range. I definitely am leaning because if it is windy, I think the crafty short games of Cam Smith and Spieth will matter more than sometimes, particularly with Cam Smith, his leaky off the tee game.
Yep.
Guy like Joaquin Niemann, he has not played here before. He is just such an uber talent that I do think he, like Homa, he's going to be, constantly having his best finishes in certain splits, links golf in Europe, at the Open, at the Scottish Open, obviously. So I'm comfortable with him. I don't know what to do with Hovland. First of all, Hovland apparently has no clubs. So that's never good. They say that every time, then these guys go out and dominate. I worry about his chipping, as everybody should in events like this. He's just an absolutely horrendous around the green player. It's not to say that he can't, if you think it's going to be calmer and he can really attack, but I look at Spieth, Niemann, Matsuyama all around him. I prefer clicking those guys before I click Victor Hovland on the majority of my teams.
Yeah. I think for me, what I've been so concerned about with Hovland is Cheetah Green, or I should say more ball striking, right? We'll take out around the game. Ball striking is his superpower. Not many guys have an absolute superpower, but Hovland's ball striking certainly is that. That has not been a superpower as of late, and one of the biggest reasons why he's not finding the top 10. So for me, I feel like I just want to see the wait and see, because he's had some kinesiology tape on the wrist and on the forearm. So maybe there's an injury there that he's trying to fight through. Again, because it's such a crowded range, I'm okay still being underweight Hovland here this week. You know, if he top 10s this week, not going to lie to you, I'll probably be back in for St. Andrews next week, but I just can't get there. Love Spieth and Smith as well this week. Niemann, let me ask you this. Of the two Chileans, I know Niemann's probably, potential a little bit higher. Who's more ready to win right now?
Yeah, I mean, it's a reasonable argument. I still am going to say that Joaquin Niemann, who hasn't played great in recent weeks, but this is still a guy that he blew away the Genesis wire to wire. He was third at the Memorial. He's making cuts in majors. He's still, I know Mito is maybe a hole away from having a ridiculous major win, but I think that for me, I'm going to still go with Niemann more often than not, even though the price range is a little different.
Okay. All right. I think that's
we got a nice, sorry to jump in. We got our man, Saint. Friend of the show, all around good guy. He gave us a super chat. Interesting question.
Oh, Saints.
Mindset questions. I love that because I can just play psychologist for no reason. Any top golfers that you think are only prepping for the Open, and pro or con for guys in the JP McManus like Xander, Burns, Lowry?
Yeah, Lowry's not in the field this week, right?
I don't
think so. Yeah, I would like him, but no. I think what he did was he played the Irish, then he played the McManus. He'll go right to the Open. Let's first take let's take question one. Let's take Spieth and Smith. Let's just use them as an example. Then we'll do the other side. Both of them are not playing well right now, or at least didn't play well in their last start. Spieth was bogey free on Friday at the Travelers, but I think for them this week, they want to get into contention. If they go and miss another cut, they're going to feel like they're way out of form next week at St. Andrews. So I think specifically for those two, they're going to want to be here, and they're going to want to find themselves on the first page of the leaderboard come Sunday, because they're not going to want to get into next week and not have been there, much of the last month or so for both of them. So I think for them, that's the case. So wanting to get into form, guys like maybe Justin Thomas, who's in really good form, Xander Schauffele, like I said, maybe they do have their eyes set on next week. Thomas has never really played well at an Open, and he's still, starting to find it. I already mentioned what I think is going to happen with Schauffele. So for me, mindset, if you're playing bad, you're going to really want to play good this week if you expect to win next week. And maybe vice versa, maybe I'd put a little stock. But again, you want to keep that momentum going. Rory talked about that at the Travelers. When you're playing well, you want to just keep it going. So I don't think there's any real preparations going on. I didn't answer the question, in too many different ways, Ben. How are you going to take it?
No, I'm in the same. I think, honestly, this is a better, for me, question for showdown, because I truly believe that a guy like the elite players, if they go out and they make the cut and they're in 63rd going into the weekend and they shoot 1 under and they're in 48th on Sunday, I don't think they're going to be too concerned about how they play. I think they're going to want to work on a couple things and set their sights on the Open. If Xander goes out tomorrow and fires, a 63, I'm pretty confident that he's going to say, okay, I want to win this tournament and keep it going. Yep. So I do think that it's more just if guys are confident in their games, they want to work on some things, but I don't really read into that. Just like the Pro-Am, I think if they got out there and got some reps for a guy like Burns, we're going to talk about Cam Young in a second. guys that are unfamiliar with links golf, I think it's good that they got out there and got a little experience.
Me too. And the fact that they're over here, they didn't really, had to adjust. Obviously, if they came in for the McManus, they probably didn't, come in on Monday. They likely came in, on Sunday. So they've been here for a couple of days as compared to some of these John Deere guys. Obviously, they would have gotten there late Monday and probably not got out of the course, until Tuesday. So in any case, yes, I do. I'm not going to use it as a tiebreaker, but certainly in Sam Burns' case, I love that he was over there and that he played well. I think he was in the top 5 of that event. And the 50 pros that were there were like the 50 best pros in the world. They're very close to it. So it's not like they weren't playing bad competition.
No doubt.
That and Tiger, who we'll talk about Tiger next week. I don't think he's going to play. There's a story going out today, Ben, that next week's actually going to be his retirement. That's what he's going to do. I'm kind of like buying into that almost because he didn't make a birdie in 36 holes of a Pro-Am, Ben. That's
yeah, I mean, we'll talk about Tiger for sure next week, but I think when you zoom out, it's just a miracle that he's golfing in general.
Yeah, absolutely.
So, yeah.
Yeah, we can move on. We'll talk about Tiger next week. Let's now go into our Make the Cut segment where you just mentioned Cameron. We're going to start it off. Now, I do want to take a second to thank the sponsor of our show, Prize Picks. I've got some really good ones for round 1 tomorrow. The thing about when you get such an affinity to players, Ben, and you have it for Griot and a couple of other guys, Rory, you really watch them, or at least I do.
Yeah.
And my guys, I know my guys now, and I'm going to be fading 2 of my favorites this week. And I'm excited to tell you about how to take advantage of that through Prize Picks, which is a player props-based contest site. What you do is you go and pick 2 to 5 props from any sport that they offer, and you can win 2x to 10x your money, depending on how many players you put in the lineup or contest that you're choosing. So again, I'm going to give you a couple for round 1 later on in the show, some of my favorites that I'm fading. So I look forward to that. Now, Cameron Young, 8,100, his first taste of links golf, at least that we're going to see on tape. Are you looking the other way this week for Cam Young? Because I don't think he makes the weekend.
I'm going to also take the wait and see. These guys are uber talented and they can go out and do it. It's tough though. Links golf is links golf and you need experience. I firmly believe that experience is more important over here than it is in the courses in the US. So could he play well? Absolutely. He's that good. Am I playing him? Not looking to get to him now.
Yeah, I got to agree. It hasn't worked out that well for us until last start. And the only times that he's really underperformed is when he's been in a bad weather wave. He actually talked about that. He said he was there for the Masters. He said he had it for the Players. So clearly he just maybe hasn't learned to play in it better, as good as other people have. Justin Rose is our next guy that I'd like to talk about. Boom or bust at 7,900 though. It's not like you're getting him on the cheap. He's still on the expensive side. I don't mind him. He's part of my player pool. I think he plays all 4 days.
I do too. I'm not looking to get to him per se, but I think if you're, even though it's going to pain me to say this, if you're trying to win the big $20, he's the type of large field tournament player that, can make the difference in those type of prize pools. So Justin Rose is that type of guy. I wouldn't hone in on him on like a single entry unless you really see something. I don't personally.
Keith Mitchell. If the weather pans out the way that I guess I've, tried to pitch it to you, he could be in play. I like him a lot if it ends up being that way. If it ends up opposite and it's really hard for these AM PM guys, he will not be here on Saturday.
So the good thing about a guy like Keith Mitchell, I think you just summed it up. I think it's pretty easy to narrate the scenarios where he could thrive. And I think it's pretty easy to fit him into lineups that correlate well with those conditions. So I really don't know what Keith Mitchell's going to do. I'm looking at our tools here at Stokastic, and he's the type of guy, there is some boom bust potential. I will look to him and plan accordingly and hope that the scenarios hit. Because as you said, if it's the wrong type of situation for him, I think he's one of the most likely to miss the cut. And he's just that type of player each and every week.
Agreed. Heartbreak King, Mito Pereira, 7,700. Missed the cut on the number each of the last 2 starts. Battled all the way back from +5 to bogey 2 of his last 3 and missed the cut at the Travelers. So are you going to stick with Mito one more week with me, or are you going to let me go down that channel all by myself yet again?
Yeah, I tend to say so. The putter is just really hurting him right now. He's lost in 5 of 6 with the flat stick. Cheetah Green is still great. I know he's missed a couple of cuts. That isn't even there. He wasn't terrible, Cheetah Green, particularly at Travelers. The irons weren't, up to his standards. So I think you can go back there. Yes. When I look at his range, though, there are a couple names that we'll get to that I do like more.
Okay. Is Adrian Maroon one of them? The first ever Polish winner, right? From the DP World Tour, won last week. Yeah, Tyler's loving that.
He is a guy that, again, he's obviously playing good golf. It's a big step. Like the impressive win, the Irish Open and this field are nothing alike, though. This is all the Americans are here. I'm not going to pay mid-7s. Guy's playing golf, though. There's no doubt that this is a talented player. I'm just not paying that price.
So I guess maybe you'd rather play Lucas Herbert at 7,600 if you had to choose one of the two.
Yes, I would. He's got a short game. Obviously, he's been playing a lot over here, but he's got plenty of experience in these type of conditions. I know his off the tee game leaves a lot to be desired, but I would rather play Herbert, who's just all over the map. You have no idea what he's going to give you. Missed cut equity is really high, but he's got some talent.
Would it excite you if I told you that 5 of Herbert's best finishes, 5 of his top 8 finishes have come at a link style course, either the Irish Open or the Scottish Open, or even if you want to consider Bermuda, which is a link style golf course. I think it's, what's it called? Royal, I'll think of it off the top of my head. The Bermuda course that I'm talking about? I forget the name of it. But
in actual case, Bermuda?
Yeah, the one that he won. He won the Bermuda Championship, the Butterfield, and that's at it's called Royal something or other.
I have
Royal Georges, maybe. No, that's the one in Canada, but I'll think of it. It'll come to me. It's a link style course in Bermuda, nonetheless, that he won. But still, Herbert, I really do. Yeah, I like him a lot. Brian Harman, 7,700. Man, he doubled the first hole of the Travelers, and I'm like, oh, good, I avoided the chalk. Then he comes in tied for 9th.
Yeah, of course.
28% owned. Does he do it again this week? He won't be as highly owned, but is he going to get into the mix again?
So he's another guy, crafty short game, not going to be long off the tee. I think that this is actually not the worst situation. Cheetah Green's been very, very solid. He is more of a U.S. Open guy. He's really struggled for the most part at Open Championships, but you're going to get that here and there. You got to dig into what he did with the waves and whatnot. I think he's fine. I'll say he finds the weekend.
Port Royal Golf Club.
Port Royal. There you go.
Royal. So I was kind of close.
You got Royal. And Chad, Jason Day, I don't know if that's just trying to drive the knife through me. Jason Day is not in this field. Thank God.
Day is not in this field, and I don't know if he'll be in any field anytime soon.
Won't be in my player pool. So.
Yeah. But his country mate, Mark Leishman, is here.
Oh, yeah.
7,600. Nobody wants to play him. He's been okay lately. Not great. So what are you doing with him this week?
I like Mark Leishman. He's been all over the map. He hasn't broken through by any stretch, but talented guy. I think that it's not just because of the history, but I do think if he's ever going to get a major, it's going to be an Open Championship. He should have one already. This is his style of golf. He's Australian. That definitely helps. Fire Mark Leishman up as an aggressive tournament play for sure.
Yeah, Mike H in chat brings up Bob McIntyre. I believe he is in this range, right? If I'm not 7,600. Yep. I didn't put him on here. Sorry. He's one of my guys that I like to play typically. He's got, you know why I didn't is because he's actually in one of those premium tee times up with one of the earlier guys. So I thought maybe we'd talk about him, but I kind of brushed over him. He is playing with, who's he playing with? Oh, he's playing with Xander and Minwoo Lee. There we go. Yeah, Bobby gets up for this tournament. He says that he does. He says it's his second favorite every year besides next week's tournament. So on those merits alone, we know he's going to be trying his hardest. Not that every golfer out there isn't. Form isn't great, though. So what do you do with that? Because that can be what Bobby does, though. He kind of disappears for stuff he doesn't want to be at and then shows up for the events that he does.
Yeah, I mean, he's still, a pretty young guy. Obviously, he's got some talent. We've seen the top 10s in majors, particularly Opens. I don't mind it. The thing that I really like, again, and this is one of the many reasons why we always encourage people come inside, especially for Major Week. Join the community, stokastic.com/join. I'll give you a little sneak peek. We have Bobby Mack at 5% ownership. I like that. That's a good tournament play. You're looking at someone like Lucas Hebert right above him, almost 3 times the ownership potentially.
I go in there.
You know what I mean? So that's a buy for me. I'm okay with him.
Another buy for me is going to come in this price range, 7,400. Chat brought him up a little earlier, and I'm circling back to him. It's Chris Kirk. Made 4 straight cuts, coming off of a top 10 at, I believe it was the Canadian Open. Yes, it was. He's just been solid this year. 13 of 19 cuts. Granted, 3 of those 6 have been, I'd say, maybe in his last 10 starts, but the upside's there. 3 top 15s in his last 4 as well. So hard for me not to play Chris Kirk, especially given that he's in what I'd consider the better weather wave as of right now.
I mean, you summed it up. Chris Kirk is just playing good golf. There's no doubt about it. Not the most experienced guy in links golf because he, doesn't get over to the Open every year, but he's gaining strokes in all 4 categories, and he's certainly got experience on tour. So I'm fine with him. I think that, like Harman in some ways, he just kind of does his thing, and I think he will play well this week.
Another guy that probably should already have an Open championship, but my guy stole it from him, and we love it.
That one.
We love every second of it. Justin Thomas cost me $200,000 that tournament. I've told that story before, so we won't rehash it. Nonetheless, Matt Kuchar has put together some decent golf. He's made 7 straight cuts, 6 straight cuts by my count, a couple of top 5s in there as well. So guy that clearly is pretty good at links golf, he's got to be in play this week, and that's definitely a long coming because he had a terrible first part of the season. It's better now.
I'd agree. I mean, from Stuart Sink to many other guys, certainly distance is not a prereq when you get to these courses. You're avoiding damage. You're making putts. You're crafty around the green. Matt Kuchar hasn't had the best year, but he's lost once around the green. The guy's an elite short game player. He will like this course. I don't know how low he can go, but in the right conditions, he should make this cut.
Yeah, he should. And if I'm not mistaken, let me just check. He has come here a couple of times, correct? Let me just get the actual stats. 20th back in the first showing of this event. Back in 2019, honestly, which is exactly where I'd expect him to finish. This week, a top 20, something better, which if the 6 of 6 is really low, Ben, that could end up helping you win a GPP, a $20, maybe. Again, if it's 1 or 2%, you could end up seeing Matt Kuchar in the optimal, the winning lineup. Definitely a difference there. Maverick McNeely bounced back after a nice miscut at the Travelers, had a ridiculously lucky chip in on Sunday at the John Deere, and it cost me some money. Of course it did. But he's here making the trip over. What do you make of Maverick this week? He's been maybe not his best recently, but again, top 10 last week, so it's coming into good form.
Yeah, I mean, Maverick is an elite putter at times. He's bounced around the price range. I still don't know how good he really is. I'll be honest. He shows flashes. I do think that he is one of the guys that I have on the list. If you think it plays difficult, that's a big bump down. So far in his career, he's really torn apart courses like John Deere a lot more than he's grinded out torture chambers. So for me, if it's really windy and it's really nasty, I would not go to Maverick. If it's very easy and there's no defense, I absolutely would.
He will be on the Sun Microsystems private jet on Saturday morning back to the East Coast. I don't think he's in the Open. If he's in the Open, then he'll take his Rolls Royce up 2 hours north to St. Andrews. That's what Maverick McNeely will be doing on Friday this week because he will not be making the cut. Next guy we're going to talk about is Gary Woodland. I have gotten maybe 3 guys just wrong every time I try to play them. Gary is on that list. Abraham Answer, I don't have to deal with anymore, even though I tried to play him in the Showdown Live. That didn't work. Basically, he's gone. Oh, so you tell me what to do with Gary this week, because I got no idea.
I don't have a great feel on him either, I'll be honest. He's not – I got other just fools at the top of my list. Woodland's – he's just – I don't know. I mean, let's look at the year a little bit. So he missed the cut at the Masters, missed the cut at Wells Fargo. Then he makes the cut at the PGA Championship, looks pretty good. I'm like, okay, he's building towards something. Miscut. Then he comes in 10th in the US Open out of nowhere. So the game is not in good shape, but he is giving you some tournament equity because when he's making the cut, everything has been inside the top 35 the entire season. So you're getting some placement points. I don't mind splashing there. I think he's less likely to make the cut than guys like Cooch or guys like Aaron Rai, but he does have some tournament appeal.
Agreed. 100% would not play him in a cash lineup, would go right to Kuchar there in a heartbeat. Having an incredible season on the DP World Tour. Outside of Ryan Fox, I think this guy is having probably the most surprising season. 12 of 13 cuts. Last cut he missed was in March at the Qatar Masters or Qatar Masters. I don't know. Tell me how you want me to say it. Doesn't matter. Regardless, Jordan Smith is playing incredible golf on the DP World Tour. 2 big weeks coming up for him here to kind of showcase that form. Is it good enough to play around the world, Ben? Is it good enough to play against these guys? We're going to find out, but what do you think?
Yeah, we're going to find out. I tend to say no, to be honest. I do think he's got a much better shot over here where he's at home and everyone's coming to him. But there's just so many guys there. I'm going to take my shots with some of them, but I'm not sure that Jordan L. Smith, who really so far, he actually does more damage in mainland Europe from what I can tell, when they play like in Porsche in Germany and things like that. His links golf, his Scottish Open pedigree is not immaculate. He's had a hell of a season. So I don't mind it. I don't think you need to overhaul. We did have a question about that. Like, do you think it's okay to build an all-American lineup? If you like just those guys, absolutely. Like, I'm not deterred by that at all.
Is Cam Smith considered American here? Like, again, are we talking like just PGA Tour, just actually American players?
Yeah, that's a good question. I definitely think if it's just PGA Tour players, absolutely.
Yeah, sure. Fine with it. 100%. Yeah. I'm totally fine with doing that. I probably have done that. I've built a good amount of lineups myself. And with that being said, if you guys want to check out how Ben and I and Alex are all allocating our shares this week in the big tournament, check out our Pro Plays tool. It is part of our premium product here at Stokastic. It's awesome. I love it. I love going to check it myself to see how silly I am being with some of my plays. Although, Ben, last week, I will say you and I had Chris Goddard up each in our top 10 of our pro rankings. Alex didn't quite catch on. We didn't quite sell him. I know he wished that we had a little bit better. But again, that's why you want to go see that. Sometimes Ben and I are going to take these stances. Sometimes Alex won't, and vice versa. It's a great tool to kind of go and compare that, especially if you're a GPP player. Check that out. And we'll tell you about a couple of free tools in just a couple of minutes as we go through a couple of more golfers here. Minwoo Lee, defending champion, hasn't played that much golf around the world. He didn't have European Tour stats when I looked it up, meaning he hadn't played enough rounds, but he's playing pretty good when he does. He flashed at the Masters there on Sunday. I think he was like, 5 under through 9, tailed off on the back 9, did the same kind of thing at the US Open. So I think there's game in there, and clearly there's game within the family. I mean, his twin sister, has picked up a couple of majors, if I'm not mistaken. So I like the prospects. Form isn't the best, but clearly defending champion, he likes the course.
Yeah, again, you're going to get a lot of this in a field this big. Minwoo Lee, major upside, huge miscut liability. We've seen that in the whole year. He misses a lot of cuts, but he competes in the best fields in the world at the same time. He's the type of guy, like if Minwoo Lee came in like 3rd at the Open, I wouldn't be surprised. If he was 30 over, I wouldn't be surprised. Nature of the beast, I think he's worth a splash.
Me too. Similar. We've already talked about Hao Tong Lee, so let's just make it easy since we both kind of given our opinion. Does he play all 4 days here this week? I think he does.
Yeah, I tend to say I think he's fine. I definitely have him ahead of guys like Jordan Smith. It's just a crowded range because Cage Lee is in there, who I think is playing pretty damn good golf.
Me too.
So I'm not sure. And Detry, who we'll get to, a lot of names, and Hao Tong Lee is certainly in the conversation.
Cage Lee, short game, has been some of the best on tour this year. It's
really
been
improved.
Incredible. He's going to really showcase that this week. I like KH Lee quite a bit. He's just kind of elevated himself into the mix in, close to top 50 in the world. I know he's ranked. I think he might even be ranked inside of that now. I think he might even be inside the top 40 after the most recent win. Got to like KH Lee this week. John Vegas, not playing great. He goes off in the morning wave. You think he can get to the weekend, or do you think the struggles continue?
So I definitely am not drawn to him. I'll say this: if you want to overhaul off the tee and you say that they're just going to be guys that go really bomber heavy, I think he's a really good play in that regard. He's gained 8 of 9 off the tee. He's lost in 5 straight with the putter. The putter is broken. And if that doesn't improve, he's not going to be able to combat anything.
Will Eric Van ruining your lineup be doing that this week if you decide to play him?
Yeah, he seems like someone. I'm trying to, because I'm still on extreme tilt. I'm thinking of like guys that could really just further that tilt. EVR would be at the top of that list. He's in the Gary Woodland conversation. I never get him right, but no, you know what? I'm not even gonna spin it. I'm not playing EVR. I'm making a stand. He's missed 4 straight cuts. I do think he is better in Europe, and he's a talented guy. But I have too many other names to start saying, you know what? Let me do something with EVR. If I was playing 150, I would have him, but I am not.
Yeah, 6th and 14th in his 2 starts here. And I think there's something that goes to that. This golf course is not demanding off the tee because the rough is basically non-existent until you get to the fescue. Maybe that's why he has some good results here. But, you know, the form is just so far off right now. There's a couple of other guys in this range. Thomas Dietrich is there. But before we get to Dietrich, let's talk about Joel Damon, because Joel Damon is having a heck of a season. Ended up having a good round 1 at the Travelers and then just kind of tailed off, kind of lost that muster we saw at the US Open. But a week removed, heading over here, his short game is pretty decent. I like Damon this week at 7,100.
So I don't mind him. I think it was really telling what he did at the US Open, because I look at a US Open, I say, guy like Joe Damon, he can't compete because his around the green game is not strong enough. Well, he's such a good iron player at times. He doesn't need to scramble as much because he hits so many greens in regulation. And we saw that there. He just couldn't convert a putt. Yep. If it's really windy, he gets it like Maverick. He gets a huge downgrade. That is not when you want to play him. If it's not, though, I mean, the guy is just a pure ball striker, and I would take him over most in this range.
How about Thomas Dietrich? Would he be one of the guys who take him over?
It's close. So of the Europeans, I know we've talked about several. Thomas Dietrich is towards the top of the non-PGA Tour players that I like. This is a guy with plenty of experience over here. He can be accurate. He can pepper greens. He's a good putter. He's just solid. I like him at more technical courses than anything else, but I think that Thomas Dietrich holds his own in a field like this.
So when you go somewhere, let me just ask you a psychology question.
Please.
If you go somewhere and you're participating in whatever you're going to, whether it's an event or something, and you know that you're not liked by like 80% of the people that are attending the event, are you going to feel comfortable there?
Certainly. I mean, I don't feel comfortable even when I'm liked at places. So no, I would not feel. I would not feel comfortable.
I'm talking about Justin Harding now for a quick second, and Brandon Grace and Ian Poulter for that matter. Billy Horschel came out earlier this week, and a regular, I don't know if our buddy TS Tokyo Swan has made it into the chat or not, but anyways, Billy Horschel is, and now I'm going to quote Batman, not the hero the PGA Tour needs, or no, not the one they deserve, but the one that they need right now. That is what Billy Horschel is. He came out and basically said, listen, you live tour golfers, leave us alone. Why are you trying to sue us? You know, get out of here. You're hypocrites. Basically saying, listen, I'm not going to be nice about this anymore. So he's clearly turned negative, and he's not the only one to these guys. So do you think that affects somebody like Harding, Grace, Poulter, knowing that half the field hates them and maybe even the fans do as well?
So I do think it's a case-by-case basis, and it's really hard to tell. A guy like Poulter, I would really assume it has zero effect. If anything, it's probably a benefit. I think he thrives on that. There are definitely some players, though, that psychologically that would impact them, that they don't want to be, and they're feeling that pressure. So I'm not sure what to do with the live things. I think it's just more variance. That's how I would assume it. There's unquantifiable variables for these guys that are ostracized. I don't think that that's a stretch. The rest of the players do not want these guys there.
Nope, they really don't. Although I don't talk about live that often. We've gone through a couple of live tour plays, but thank you, Greg, for pointing it out. We have a decent amount of people in here. If we could just, Give us a couple of likes the next time you hear one of the recommendations that Ben and I give that we're playing that you do like. Make sure you hit that button for us. And of course, make sure you're subscribing, not to just this channel, the Stokastic YouTube channel, but also the OddsChecker YouTube channel where Ben is on quite a bit, giving his best bets. And last week, I mean, I know our buddy Tyler hit Boston. I think he was part of the conversation as well.
He certainly was.
So yeah, tune into that. Thank you again, Greg, for that shout out. Now back to somebody else I saw in chat that I wanted to bring up, Harris English. He's a guy that I know you and I didn't play a ton of when he was going through his torrid form. I mean, just incredible. But now he's come back. He hadn't played since Sony, missed the cut at the Memorial in his first week back, came in last as expected. But he's made the cut in each of his next 2 starts and actually looked good at the Travelers at times, tied for 19th. At 7,100, I'm going to have some shares this week, Ben. I think at this price, if he's going to make a comeback, I know he's been working hard on his game with his instructor. He talked about that with Justin Parsons in Sea Island. So I'm willing to give him a chance here this week, even though he may not be back to full health.
So it's definitely an interesting situation with him. I do think he's ahead of schedule. The one thing I would say is that the Travelers, it was all putting. He gained 7 strokes putting, 2.5 around the green. He has still not gained off the tee or with the approach since 2021.
All year, yeah.
It's been tough for him. He's a talented guy. He's an elite putter, so he can definitely carry himself with just one club if needed, but he's really got to bring up the tee to green game to get back to his elite level.
Pat Rogers, man, it felt so good when I thought he was going to miss the cut and he stepped up on that par 3 and they had it on TV and he had the hole in one. I'm like, man, this is it. I've got a hole in one. I'm going to win this week. I ended up coming in 8th and didn't win. So that's the way it goes. But he's played good golf. Can he do it again this week? Is he a guy that goes into the Joel Damon and Maverick McNeely bucket? I'm going to guess yes.
Yeah, I think to some extent, when I don't particularly think of Patrick Rogers as like a links golfer per se, but I do think of him as a very talented player. I prefer him with some of the splits that we're going to get here. I will say he's just on fire with his putter. That's really propping him up. He did not play that well. Listen, I was on Patrick Rogers last week. He was a key of my lineups. Not that it mattered, but he did not play that well. He gained 7 strokes putting and he gained 5 with the approach, but he had an ace. So keep that in mind. I think he's fine, but he didn't stand out to me either way.
Victor Perez coming in at 6,900, right next to Ricky Fowler. Do either of them make the cut? Do both? Who would you rather play?
Who's all I heard was Ricky and then I blacked out. Who was the other guy? I hear Ricky and I'm not even paying attention. It's not Ricky. So
Victor Perez.
God, maybe it is. Now, I mean, so Victor Perez, the thing I don't really understand with him, let's see what the hell is going on with Victor Perez. Why is he so popular? Like, I don't really understand. I'm not playing either of these guys, but Victor Perez is north of 10%. To me, that's absurd.
That seems a little excessive. I mean, don't get me wrong. The first and the third about a month ago are appealing, but this guy, I feel like he just doesn't get it done. No, you know where he did get it done? I'll take it back. He got it done at last year's Players Championship where he holed out on the 18th hole for birdie to make the cut and ended up having a ridiculously good weekend. That's about the only time I feel like he's paid off, when we've had a chance to roster him in an event that truly mattered. Not that these European tours don't matter to these guys. Of course they do. They just don't really matter too much to us when, the prize pools are kind of meaningless. Nonetheless, though, I think it continues here this week. He's a boom and bust guy. I think I'm going to say a missed cut here is coming, even though he, I believe, is in the good weather wave, or at least what I'm projecting to be.
Yeah, I don't have a ton of interest in either of them. I'd rather just YOLO pivots with 1%ers.
Yep. Me too is Ricky Fowler. Looks like he's having a fun time with the boys, at least. I think he gets through the cut here this week at the Scottish. I really do. I think he
might make the cut. I can't do it with Ricky. He's shown me nothing, honestly.
David Lipsky has shown you a couple of things this year, coming back over to the European Tour now. What do you think of Lipsky this week?
Yeah, I mean, gotten some experience, held his own on the PGA Tour. This is where it really opens up when we get to the low sixes. You got Lipsky, you got Zanotti, Thorborn is down here, Fratelli, Arnoux. I'm not saying play all these guys. Matt Wallace, just names to consider, and I think he's one of them.
All right, let's move on. You mentioned a couple of those guys. We've got five names left here before we get into some of our lineup build. One of those names the chat has brought up multiple times. So let's talk about it because I feel like we're pretty hot with these young kids. Jo Hyung Tom Kim, a 20-year-old from South Korea, has flashed a couple of times on the PGA Tour, tied for 23rd at the U.S. Open, tied for 17th at the Charles Schwab. The kid has game when he tees it up in the Asian Tour, Ben, top 5 machine. The guy is 4 straight right now. At a 20-year-old, I don't care what professional tour you're playing on. If you're doing that as a 20-year-old, you have got some game. So big next 2 weeks for him. He doesn't really have status on any tour right now. So he could really make a name for himself, get himself into the Korn Ferry Tour finals with 2 good starts. Are you backing him? I saw him at 400 to 1 on DK. You know me, I'm not really looking at it to win, but through the board, if we get another one of those top 5s like we got with Goddard last week, that's like hitting a winner. It's going to be a 30 to 40 to 50 to 1. I love it this week. I'm going to buy into it.
I'm okay with it. I don't think you need to go crazy. I don't think anyone's sub 65. And there's a lot of names. Yeah, Catlin is down there. Straka. I don't have a strong preference, but you don't need, in my opinion, you don't need a strong preference. Looking at the leverage tool, all of these guys are not going to be popular. 5-10%, you'll have leverage. And I think Tom Kim fits that. I don't know how good this kid is. He might be amazing. He might be the next big thing, or he could just be, an absolute blip on the radar. So I look at that. I like what I've seen. I'll take my chances. A couple shares. Why not?
I got a stat for you. I just saw this. I had to look it up because Hogard, as I mentioned, Nikolai, he's down at 6,500 this week, and he's in one of those featured groups. How do you do this, Ben? How do you make 22 birdies in 4 days and shoot 1 over for the tournament? 22 birdies.
That's the Cam Davis. Yeah.
Dude, that's insane. That's so crazy to me. He came in almost dead last and had 22 birdies. Anyways, I think that's maybe a decent. I think it's maybe a decent side for this week, though. If we can clean those big numbers up. You mentioned exact same thing about Cam Davis last week. If we can avoid the big numbers, he gets in the top 10. That's exactly what he did last week. I kind of feel something similar with Hogard. I don't know if he has as much talent as Davis, but certainly some is in there. There's no doubt about that.
I definitely am a believer, particularly when you get to the 6s. I would rather have my guy make a bunch of mistakes and try to clean them up than a guy who just doesn't, who makes only a couple birdies and he tries to be perfect. There are some elite scorers down there. This would be one of them. I'm okay with that. When it goes wrong, they miss the cut, but when it goes right, big time upside.
Can an albatross help propel a golfer to a good start in his next one? Because I'm talking about Steven Jaeger right now.
That guy. I thought you were talking about another. Ironically, I thought you were talking about another German golfer who made an albatross, who's my guy. But Steven Jaeger did make an albatross.
Oh, Kiefer?
Yeah.
Did Max Kiefer make one at the Irish last week?
He made one 2 weeks ago.
Okay. Right.
We'll get to him. Don't worry. I'm not playing Jaeger. I get it. There's just too many names. Chad already rattled off a bunch of names that I think are very reasonable. So if Jaeger beats me, he beats me. He just hasn't been consistent enough.
Here's a name I was not excited to pronounce because I can promise you it's going to be wrong. I've got it as Thurston Lawrence.
Who?
Thurston Lawrence. I could be wrong on the pronunciation.
Lawrence?
But the 25-year-old from South Africa came in tied for 3rd last week at the Irish Open. And while I'm like, who cares? It's just one start. I went back to March, and he reeled off 3 top 5s or 3 top 10s in 3 consecutive starts there. So when we see that, Ben, we kind of lean to one of those golfers that when he gets in form, he plays well every year. But I have no idea of this guy. I had not even heard of him until this week. So I'd rather play Jo Hyung Kim than Lawrence this week. I'd rather go for the upside, but I'm not going to deny he has had some good starts this year.
I can't even find this guy. He might not be. Maybe DraftKings just said, "Don't worry about it."
No, 6,600.
Cut me a break because I don't think he's in my. Oh yeah. I saw this guy before when I was scrolling, and my only thought was, the hell is Trevor Lawrence doing playing golf over here? Because that's the only T. Lawrence that I'm thinking of. Don't know who this is. I won't be playing him. Absolutely not for me. Seems talented though.
Does. Guido Migliozzi, 6,300. He gets up for big events. This would be considered one. I've got a couple of shares on those, Rahm Scheffler stacks. That's pretty much where I'm using.
This is where I think you really need to look at what you're doing up top. If you're going double north of 10K and stuff and you need some punts, I don't think it's crazy to dip down here. You better have a reason though, because the miscut equity is very high on no matter who you're choosing. You're not going to have a lot of ownership in this range, but I think that's because of the extreme risk. Chad
brought up a name who's made 10 of 14 cuts, but only one top 10 in those 10 made cuts. Guy's name is Matthew Jordan. He bit me in the dust. I forgot what tournament I needed to play him last year, and I did. I have no idea why. Nonetheless, 6,200. I mean, maybe a share or two because he's that cheap. You've also got Callum Tarrant down there, who I actually think is playing really good golf. Another decent showing at the John Deere Classic. Had it going at the U.S. Open. I'd probably rather play Tarrant for $100 more if I can get there.
Agree. Seen this guy a little bit, hung around, I thought pretty admirably at the US Open. Yep. Followed it up with a top 10 at the John Deere. Guy's making birdies. He's English. I guess that helps. He would be as low as I would go.
Yeah. Funny enough, chat must have been reading our,
they know
our run sheet, because we were just about to bring up Tarrant and two guys brought him up. Okay, but I think any other guys that we want to talk about probably going to come in the hot take section or even in our lineup builds. So before we move on to there, we have the Open Championship next week, Ben. And if one was to buy a weekly PGA DFS pass today, they would get all of the coverage for next week Open Championship. So you're going to get the Scottish Open and the Open Championship. And Ben, not only that, we have got a promo code that's going to get you 50% off any weekly pass that you want to buy. PGA LBL. That's obviously stands for Live Before Lock. That's the promo code you're going to use. Trust me, guys, this is the perfect week to do it. If you haven't joined us on the other side, this is the time to do so. We've got so many great things at Stokastic, so many great tools. Just the PGA Weather Splits tool alone this week, I think, will be worth that value that you're going to get. Plus, we've, of course, got the ownership projections, player projections, and so much more. So, Ben, what do you think? This is a pretty darn good week, given next week's Open Championship. Scottish Open could be some overlay this week. I mean, pretty good time to use the tools that we got here.
No doubt. And you come on in, you can get that platinum as well off for the 50% off for the month with that promo code. You get a lot of different things. While you're at it, you get the baseball. The guys do a great job over there, so you can take advantage of all of these things. It's a great stretch of golf. You get a little betting in there. I
didn't know that Eric, our buddy, went by Lindy because he's got the new video out in the morning, Lindy's Picks. I like that.
It's a great video. I've actually been watching it, enjoying it.
He's so animated. He definitely gives me a run for my money when he's on.
Oh yeah, he's got some energy. He brings, and he does. Trust me when I say this, he is grinding. He is putting in a lot of work on that. So if you enjoy betting, OddsChecker YouTube is where you want to be for sure.
All right, our buddy Tyler is ready to make some lineups.
Let's do it.
Though, if you do want to sneak peek behind the curtain, our golfer rankings, if I'm not mistaken, are free today. Ownership projections are also free. That was for the main slate for MLB. Again, make sure you check them out tomorrow. We always put out our free premium articles. So, all right, now our free premium tools, I should say, each and every day you get a different one to take a look at. So now let's go ahead and make some lineups. I have the all AM PM, and then we're going to do an all PM AM just to be different. And then we're going to not even look at tee times and make a lineup. Those are going to be our three this week. So for AM PM, it seems like you and I both like Cameron Smith and Jordan Spieth a lot, and like Jon Rahm a lot. Do you think it's too aggressive to get all three in?
No, not at all. Let's click it in and see where it leaves us. Yeah, we still have flat 7 with Jon Rahm, Cam Smith, and Jordan Spieth. 3 spots left for $7,000 each. We can definitely make that work.
All right, I'm going to let you pick the next guy.
Great.
And I know the tee times pretty well, so if you just give me a name, I'll be able to tell you likely if they're in the AM.
Yeah, no, I'm looking right now. So I'm trying to get some value. I'm trying to think how we're gonna flat, or are we just gonna go with the straight punt? Honestly, I think this is gonna be the time. If we're gonna use Callum Tarrant, I think this is where we may have to do it. It'll give us extreme salary relief. It would be a pure punt play if you want to do that. I think we should do it.
Okay. What's this tee time?
9 a.m.
9 a.m. Okay. The only other one that I was going to pitch at you would have been Jo-Hyun Kim because he's going off in that same time frame. But I think Taram has shown us probably a little bit more. Oh, Tyler really wants us to go with Jo-Hyun Kim, Ben.
What about, let's just see what happens if we put both of them in there.
Oh, boy.
Oh, Lord.
Oh, boy. I love this.
Tom Kim's a lock. Tom Kim's a lock. I'm sorry.
Yeah, I know. We got to stick with
Kim. Yeah. We could get right to Connors, who I do like this week.
We didn't even talk about Connors yet, but 8,300 prices come down. He's in that morning wave. Let's do it. I like it. I might have already made this lineup as much as I like it. Anyways, regardless, it's entered. I love it. That is an aggressive lineup. We're looking to win the $20. We're looking to get Taram and Kim in the top 20. Man, I wonder what that parlay pays. Anybody over on FanDuel quickly to get me that? That would be an interesting one. Okay, let's go with the PM AM wave. We did not talk about many of these guys. We talked about the stars. We both said that we're fine with Thomas and Fitzpatrick. If we're playing this wave, though, do you want to go down to Morikawa, Zalatoris, Cantlay instead? Or would you like to stick up top with Fitzpatrick and Thomas?
No, I think we can go balanced if we want. We could start with, what if we started with Cantlay? You nervous about your boy?
Yeah.
Okay. We don't have to. I'm not really on Cantlay. He's a nice price. I'm kind of
indifferent. What about Matsuyama?
Sure. You want to start with him?
Yeah, I want to start with Matsuyama.
Okay, that's going to be a very interesting build then, because then we're gonna be very flat. I would assume then Sanjay Im might follow him.
Bingo. Definitely. Okay. My first thought. Max Homa would also be a shoe-in into this lineup. See, Cameron Young, you and I are both out on it. I don't even want to use him.
What about Leishman?
Yeah, I think this is a spot where we use a Leishman. We use somebody else in that range. So how about something? When's Kuchar tee off?
Kuchar tees off at 2:00. Yep.
Yeah. Let's do Kuchar, and that's going to leave us. That should get us back into that 9,300 range. Leaves us Zalatoris.
I'm fine with it. I mean, I don't think that he stands out, but when you're talking about guys up top, I tend to say unless you see a red flag, they're such good players, even when they don't have it. If they just turn it on, they're hoisting the trophy.
Yeah, totally agree there. Okay.
Who was the last one? Matsuyama, M, Leishman, Kuchar, Zalatoris, and who?
Max Homa.
Yeah, you got it. Okay. All right, last one. This is where we're not even going to look at the tee time. I'm just going to look at our top plays. Let's see. Sam Burns is too far down the list for me to click here. So Thomas or Fitzpatrick?
Thomas.
Okay. Let's see. What do you think about using Ty Hatton's price at 7,800? That interest you? Not playing great, but looked decent at the Pro-Am a couple of days ago. So
I'm gonna have some Ty Hatton shares for sure.
Okay. This is a spot maybe to use Bobby McIntyre. You okay with that?
Bobby Mac still got plenty of salary left.
How about C-Bez and Aaron Rai? Bez coming off of one of his best starts. We know he's done it in back-to-back starts a couple of times, and Rai obviously loves this course. Won and also made the cut in the other two.
Yeah, so the thing I like about this lineup, you got Justin Thomas, Hatton, Bobby Mack, Bez, and Rai. You're going to be at 9,100. There's like 8 guys that you could play. You could play Matsuyama, Spieth, Hovland, Im, Neiman, Fleetwood, Connors. All of these guys are in play. So a lot of different options if you build like that.
Agreed. For this one, I'll click Neiman's name, leave some salary on the table. Sure. We already use Spieth. We already use Matsuyama. We already use Smith. So I'll pick Neiman. I'll take Neiman over Ryan Fox as well. Actually, we already used Sung Jae as well here. So the only other guy to get exposure to would be Neiman. That's the click for me there. So that's it. Those are our lineups there for this week. Really like how we built them out. And good luck this week to anybody entering a variation of that. I feel like we've done pretty good at highlighting exactly what we're trying to do, theme building. So, okay, now let's go to our hot takes, where I thankfully get to say that I am 1 for 1 coming off of last week. I had got her up a top 10 there last week, ended up coming in the top 5. So I will look to make it back-to-back weeks. Sanders Schauffele, I've already mentioned that one. So here is my prize picks hot take of the day. We'll start with that. And it is Patrick Cantlay and Colin Morikawa. Those two are my boys. And most of the people in here that are listening, if you guys have been following me for years, you guys know I love these two guys. I play them pretty much all the time. But what I have found is they are terrible, and terrible is relative, when conditions get tough, especially when the wind blows. Cantlay has not done anything over here, and Morikawa's win last year saw the best conditions an Open Championship has had in maybe 20 years. So for me, their line on Prize Picks is set at 67.5 for round one, Ben. That is basically 4 under or better. I think both of them come in even or maybe even over par tomorrow. Taking the over on both of those guys. If you want to jump into my Xander Schauffele hot take as well, you could throw him in there as well. $20. If you bet 20 and all 3 of those guys over 67.5, your return is going to be $100 there. So a 4-to-1 payout plus your buy-in back. So pretty good odds, Ben. That is my hot take. I've got Cantlay, Morikawa, and Schauffele all missing the cut. If your book allows miss the cut parlays, that could be a pretty tasty one as well. So that's my hot take. Cantlay, Morikawa, Schauffele, all heading to St. Andrews by 9 o'clock Saturday morning.
That's a hot take. All right. That's what we do on this show. All right. Hot take time. 3 things. 1, it's good to see everyone, even for the Scottish Open. Let's push the likes over 100. It's going to be no problem. A couple people press the button. 2, on a personal note, a lot of you reached out after my ungodly disaster at the John Deere, which I don't want to relive. I appreciate that. It really, really sucked. Seeing the community pseudo rally around me. Everyone knows how that feels. Just, we will bounce back. 3, the actual hot take time.
You would have won hundreds of thousands. Anyways.
That is true. Yes, I would have, and it would have been quite useful.
3.
All right. We talked about him a little in the show.
Maybe
my man. Everyone knows that I'm obsessed with Griot. There's an international Griot, a European Griot. Yes. Maximilian Kiefer, my man, 18-1 for a top 20 on him. That's just absurd. No joke. That really is a crazy number. I know that he's probably overmatched in this field, but he's actually playing really good golf. Let's dig into the numbers of what this dude's been doing. Obviously, he only plays in Europe. 7th in Scandinavia, 26th at the BMW, which is a good field, 30th at the Irish Open. 21 birdies, 16 birdies and an albatross, 14 birdies and an eagle. He is an accurate player. He dismantles the par 5s at 6,400. I'm pretty into him as a complete flyer. I like him more in the betting markets. If you want a guy that no one's ever heard of, Maximilian Kiefer is your guy.
I love it. I think that is fantastic. A great call. An albatross, you got to love it. Those don't come around often. So, all right. Did we miss anything in chat? We've gone about, just 10 minutes over. We're working Tyler here.
It happens.
It's all right. Let's set the stage. Scottish Open. It's at the Renaissance Club. Fantastic coverage. We'll start tomorrow morning at 2:00. This is as close to as live before lock as we're going to get until next week, where we'll do the exact same thing. It's a great lead-in. Again, I said it at the top. I'm so thankful that it is a PGA Tour event, and it was my favorite European Tour event to watch. Kind of got me into the mood for the Open, so this is going to make it all the much better. So everybody, enjoy it. Like I said, take advantage of that promo code PGA LBL. It's a great week to do so if you only want to join us for the week. Ben already mentioned for the month, you can get it half off as well by using that promo code. With the Open Championship coming next week, it's honestly got a perfect time. So until next week, Ben, you got anything else?
No, not at all. You got any questions at DFS Golfer 23 at JazzRaz DFS friends? Great chat as always. We appreciate you guys. You make this show fun. Let's get on a run. A lot of golf to be played. Let's see some screenshots. Let's get it done, and we'll talk to you guys soon.
Love it. Thanks, guys, for joining. And girls, if you're out there as well, we will catch you on the other side. Cheers, everybody.